And welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Analysis for IAS 2025. It is 21st July today, and we are going to discuss these seven articles. So, before we start our discussion, I would like to introduce this channel to you. Every day we upload two videos. First one, we discuss the daily news analysis, we discuss the most important articles which are relevant for your exam, and we try to explain them in the simplest language possible, in the least टाइम मतलब कि बहुत कम टाइम में वो ये सारे आर्टिकल्स आपको एक्सप्लेन करे with the most information available. और दूसरी बात, in the evening session we upload another video in which we discuss the daily quiz of the current affairs, which are either the questions are related to the current affairs, so that it would help you in revising the question, in revising your current affairs, in revising these articles, and also give you the idea how these articles could be asked in the question form, how questions could be framed from them. And also we discussed few previous year questions from the previous year papers, so that it will give you the brief idea how the questions do come in the exam and how you can implement the knowledge from those questions in your upcoming exam. We are about to complete the ancient history. After that we will take up the medieval history. I am talking about the daily quiz in which we discuss the previous year questions. So with this, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe the channel and hit the like button and share it with your friends. When you subscribe, it gives us the energy, it motivates us to work more hard on it and give you the better information, work more hard on it, and search for the best information available for you. And also that is the appreciation from you guys when you do subscribe to this channel. Now, without any delay, let's see what are the articles which we have to discuss today. First, we have to discuss the gender gap in education. In this, we will discuss the gender gap overall. Then we will discuss gender gap report, who frames that gender gap report. We will discuss the education in India. We will discuss the different levels of education at different classes, and we will discuss what is the enrollment rate of the girls and boys according to the years. Then after we will discuss the local job quota pass. Will local job quota pass the legal test? It is with respect to the Karnataka bill, which we already discussed. Here we have to we will discuss few key provisions of that bill, and after that we will discuss the CPCB pollution, Central Pollution Control Board, and plastic waste violation happening in Maharashtra. We will discuss about that. Then after that we will discuss the non-communicable diseases increasing, what are the reasons. Then we will discuss the Chandipura virus. We discussed this article earlier also. It is same as that, so there we don't need to put more information in it, but we will try to catch up to that. Then after that we will discuss the tea industry seeking high road tap. After that we will discuss the animal acquiring genes from bacteria. With this, we'll start our first discussion. It is about the gender gap in education. First, we have to understand what the gender gap is. In layman's language, or we can say in the simplest form, we should know that the parity between two genders, the parity between male and female in any field, in anywhere, for example, in education, for example, in politics, anywhere, for example, in jobs, जहाँ पे भी आप जाओ, कहीं पे भी, और आप वहाँ पे parity देखो, मेल और फीमेल्स कहाँ कितने इन्वॉल्व है, दैट इज कॉल्ड द जेंडर गैप. और this gender gap report, so with the gender gap, there is the gender gap report which is produced by the World Economic Forum. And about the gender gap, we should know that male population and female population are not on the same level, which is the worrying sign. And it is released by the World Economic Forum. What is the objective of the gender gap report? to understand equalities between male and female. The objective of this report is to understand the equalities between male and female. So what are the parameters taken by the World Economic Forum in producing the gender gap? There are 4 parameters. We should know these parameters. First one, it is economic participation and opportunity. How many women and men participate in the economy of the country, and what is the level of opportunity available for women and men. Then after that, we see another parameter is education attainment, how much education a girl can get and a girl gets, and how much education the boy gets, the parity between them, what is the gap between them. Then after that, there is health and survival, what is the understanding the health of ladies and men, what is their survival rate according to that. And finally, it is the political empowerment. We discussed about political empowerment earlier also. So it is about how many men and women are involved in the politics. What is the ratio of women with respect to the men in the politics, in framing the policies or something like that. So the parameters of this gender gap report, or we can say parameters which are highlighted by the World Economic Forum, are 4. It is economic participation and opportunity, it is education and attainment, it is health and survival, and it is political empowerment. So with this, we should know that we have various different reports indicating that the Iceland, it has been on the top from last 1 decade on the World Economic Forum report. On the gender gap report, it has been on the top from at least a decade. We see that the Nordic region countries are doing very well in this gender gap report, or we can say there is parity between men and women. The parity between these genders in the Nordic region is very high. So there is मतलब कि वहाँ पे least मतलब कि कोई किसी gender को कम मिलता है, it is very least there. So the ratings done between जो इसकी मतलब कि वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक जेंडर गैप रिपोर्ट का जो मतलब कि रेटिंग दी जाती है, it is from 0 to 1. 0 is complete gender gap and 1 is complete gender parity. और अगर हम देखेंगे इंडिया का स्टेटस, व्हाट इज इंडिया इज एट द 129 out of 146 nations, so it is not something that we should be proud of. We are lacking very much behind in this. And also in India, we can see that there is economic participation and political participation gap is very huge. With respect to the political participation, we had brought the 106th Amendment Act, which will come into action after the census reports will be released, after the census would be done and delimitation would be done. Then it would come into the picture. After that, we should know that who collects the data for the World Economic Forum. It is the UNESCO which collects the data for World Economic Forum. And in India, we have, since this article we are discussing it with respect to the education gap in India, the gender gap in education in India. So we have to now give the direction of our discussion towards the gender gap in education. For that, we have to understand first the data given by different organizations. For example, we have UDISC Plus, which gives the data for the primary and secondary education in India, and then we have AISHE, which gives for the higher education. According to UDISHE, we have different data for different levels of classes. For kindergarten, we see 46.8% enrollment of girl child in school, and from class 1 to 5 we see 47.8%. For kindergarten we see 46.8%. So here the question may come to our mind, how this is increasing from kindergarten to classes 1 to 5. So here the reason could be, we can हम यहाँ से एक चीज़ निकाल सकते हैं कि यहाँ का रीज़न क्या है, the availability of the schools nearby the houses, nearby the residence of the child. क्योंकि यूजुअली जब एक छोटी बेटी होती है घर वालों को, they are hesitant to send their children to school which are far away from their home, so they would prefer it, मतलब कि अगर उनके घर के सामने स्कूल होगा तो so they would prefer that is why कि जब लड़की थोड़ी बड़ी होती तो उनका जो एनरोलमेंट है वो बढ़ जाता है. Then after class 6 to 8 we can see the enrollment rate is increasing क्योंकि लड़कियों का एनरोलमेंट रेट बहुत ज़्यादा इंक्रीज हो रहा है. But suddenly in class 9 to 10 we see the dip in the enrollment rate. So what could be the reason? Actually इसका reason नहीं बताया जाता है क्योंकि up to 8th there is no examination, no student can be failed. So because of that जो enrollment है इनका वो high रहता है. But after 8th जो बच्चे fail होते मतलब जब because of the fear of the exams many students girl students or even male students they stay away from the school, वो drop out करते हैं, and there we can clearly see the dip in the enrollment of the children. And after we can see in classes 11th and 12th we see the increase in the enrollment rate again. So अगर हम दूसरा पॉइंट लेंगे इसका जो बॉयज़ का एनरोलमेंट है आफ्टर 9th and 10th क्लासेस वी सी डिप इन देयर एनरोलमेंट रेट. इट इज़ बिकॉज क्योंकि दे हैव द बर्डन ऑफ इनकम, उनको अब कमाने की ज़रूरत पड़ती है. दे हैव टू फीड द फैमिली, बिकॉज ऑफ दैट दे टेंड टू ड्रॉप आउट फ्रॉम द स्कूल्स. विद रेस्पेक्ट टू द गर्ल्स उनका ये इशू नहीं रहता है, बल्कि इट इज़ सेड दैट आफ्टर 10th जो लड़की जाती है, इट इज़ सेड दैट दो स्टूडेंट्स आर वेरी सीरियस फॉर द इन देयर एजुकेशन, सो उनका एनरोलमेंट रेट बढ़ जाता है. सो दिस वाज अबाउट द एनरोलमेंट ऑफ ए गर्ल चाइल्ड फ्रॉम किंडरगार्टन टू the class 12th. Now from this we understood few things. What are the core issues with the enrollment, core factors involved? We see the number of schools that have, मतलब कि जो घरों के साथ नज़दीक होगा, अगर ज़्यादा स्कूल होंगे तो रेजिडेंस के नज़दीक ज़्यादा स्कूल आएंगे, so that would help in increasing the enrollment. We see the issue of transportation. हमने देखा किंडरगार्टन में पेरेंट्स टेंड टू, मतलब अगर from kindergarten to class 5th the enrollment rate is slightly lower than the enrollment rate of the girls from 6th to 8th. it is because the मतलब जो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का इशू है, पेरेंट्स वो डरते हैं मतलब कि एक छोटे प्राइमरी स्कूल के बच्चे को खुद स्कूल भेजना in the transportation या अकेले, मतलब it is not they are not comfortable with that. So as the age grows up उनका कॉन्फिडेंस अपने बच्चे पे बढ़ता है और they are willing to let them go to the school by their own. So we can say the transportation can solve this issue if transportation would be there. For example, there have been from free school buses, free bus passes in Tamil Nadu. We can also include free cycles, so it could help in increasing the enrollment rate of the girl child. And also presence of female teachers is one of the issue. Mostly the girl child, they feel comfortable with the female teachers in the school. If the presence of female teachers in the school increases, the participation of a girl child will also increase in school. And also infrastructure like toilet maintenance and toilets, it is also important. As the child grows up, the sense of cleanliness increases in her or him. So if we would take the example of girls, after the class 5th they tend to attain the age of puberty, and for them the cleanliness is very important. And if I remember during my school days there were toilets, but they were least bearable. So this is one of the issue in the schools. So if the infrastructure is well, toilets are well maintained, and it could also contribute to the enrollment of children in the school. So this was about this gender gap in education. We discussed about it. We discussed about the gender gap overall. We discussed about the gender gap report. It is released by WEF. The parameters, the data collected for it is by UNESCO. We discussed about it. Then we discussed about the different levels for the girl child, their enrollment, what could be the reason why there is low enrollment at some level and it is increasing, why it is decreasing again in class 9th and 10th, and why it is increasing after 10 in classes 11th and 12th. We discussed about it. I hope I was able to make these points easy for you guys. Now to the next topic, it is about the will local quotas pass the legal test? We discussed this Karnataka bill at least 3 times earlier. Now it is the 4th time. They passed the employment for locals in management and non-management areas. They gave they gave the reservation for in the management 50%, and for non-management is 70% reservation for the local population. The reason they cite for that, it is the resentment of the locals for the migrants, that they are taking their opportunities and they are taking their jobs. And here we discussed that in a detail. We discussed different states had brought it. For example, Haryana tried to bring it, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, and they all had not, those all bills are not able, they were not able to form these laws because of the interference from the court, or they had itself kept it low. But in this article we will discuss some other features of the bill. First, the Disco reservation, the local should be the domicile of the Karnataka for at least 15 years, or domicile of the Karnataka, and he should be well knowing about the Kannada language. He should have proficiency in the Kannada language. If the company or the industry is not able to find this proficiency in the Kannada language, this criteria, then they can give the 3-year training period for the locals, in which they will teach them their ways of working, and give this training period for these people. And also, if still they are not able to get these things, they are not able to meet the talent which they need, then they can they can request the government, and this quota could be reduced for this certain cases, in which they have to keep in mind that for in the management quota they can't go below 25% from the local population, and for non-management they can't go below 50%. So this was new in today's article, which we had not touched yet. पहली बात जो आज हमने नई सीखी इस आर्टिकल में, अकॉर्डिंग in the context of the Karnataka's bill, first he should be domiciled for 15 years, proficiency in Kannada language, and also 3 years time period given, 3 years training period given to the local population to train them in their respective works. And if the company is not able to attain this, then they can request the government it can be reduced, this quota can be reduced to the 25% for the management and 50% for the non-management. This reservation could be reduced. But we saw that from the government side, we ask, if we would ask them why they are bringing such bills, they say that this is the jo locals ka resentment hai, the hatred, their hatred increasing for the migrants. They are taking their opportunities, so that to cool them down, to give them मतलब कि उनको job मिले, हमारे to think of their state's population only, they are giving these jobs. So it was from the government side. But from the industry side, what they say, they make few arguments what could be the impact of this on the particular state on the particular state in which this bill is passed. First, they are saying, the industry says that it will limit the talent pool, मतलब कि जो talented लोग हैं they would least come to the state, क्योंकि सिर्फ उनको पता चलेगा कि हमें वहाँ पे नौकरी तो नहीं मिलने वाली, so talent pool will be limited. Companies have to find out from the particular state itself, मतलब कि Kannada speaking में ही से उनको they have to give the jobs, so it would definitely limit the talent pool. It would lead to the flight of skills, जो वहाँ पे skilled ये थे laborers थे या skilled manpower था वहाँ पे, they would move away from that state and try to find jobs in different states because of this particular bill. And also it would discourage the foreign investment in this, because foreign investment आएगा ताकि उनको benefit मिले, इनको कोई फायदा मिले. But if this bill is brought in and it limits the talent pool for them, why would they come to that particular state? They would go to different state where they can hire from anywhere in the country. And also it can impact the GSDP of the particular state, क्योंकि जब talent pool बाहर जाएगा, flight of the skills बाहर जाएगी, there would be least foreign investment in the particular state, then it would definitely impact the GSDP of that particular state. Also, we had discussed about the legal hurdles which this bill can मतलब जो ये legal hurdle जो ये violate करती है. For example, it violates the Article 16, in which it is clearly said no discrimination on employment on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth and residence. So there is definitely, they are violating this. And also it comes under the, अगर ये ऐसी चीजें लानी, then it comes under the ambit of the parliament, not the state legislature. and also it violates the article 19 freedom of movement. अगर ये ऐसी bill लाएंगे तो people from different states would least travel to that. It would restrict their freedom of movement. It would restrict, so it would restrict the work employability of a particular individual. So it violates the article 16, it violates article 19. So these are a few legal hurdles which this bill would fail definitely. So let us see what will happen to this. We are hopeful that we will discuss this once again in the near future, maybe in this week itself. Let us see what will happen. Moving to the another article of today's discussion, it talks about the Central Pollution Control Board. It plans to check violation in plastic waste management. You know about Central Pollution Control Board. It is a statutory body. It is underwater. It is statutory body under the Water Act of 1974. You know, in our country, the major problem is the problem of waste management. That is, we see the bulk of waste in particular areas. So to manage them, to manage that waste, it is the problem. And in that solid waste, the plastic waste is the most major problem in that. So with respect to that, we had brought up, the government has brought up the extended producer responsibility. So to understand this extended producer responsibility, I would like to frame you an example. For example, of चल रहे हो and you are feeling hungry and you want to, there is no restaurant where you can eat food, and there are some small kirana shops, and you want to eat some chips or kurkure, for example, my favorite. So you have two options: either to eat that kurkure packet, buy that kurkure or chips packet and eat that, and end your hunger, or you will feel low at energy, and you will be in discomfort whole day, and it will impact your health. So the जो normally इंसान क्या करेगा, he will go to the shop and eat that chips, and maybe he will buy the Bisleri bottle and drink water from that. Now issue आता है यहाँ पे, as these things are मतलब के they are transported they are these chips and this water comes to us via this plastic medium. So what will we do to that plastic? We have to dump it. We will wrap it and dump it somewhere. So now the issue comes, who is the violator of this? मतलब कि ये pollution किसने किया है? Is it you, जिसके पास कोई चॉइस नहीं थी और उसने पानी पिया और उसने वो चिप्स खाया, या ये वो कंपनी है जिसने हमें इन चीज़ों में ये सारी चीज़ें दी? So it is definitely the responsibility of the producer. So in that context, here comes the extended producer responsibility. So there are EPR targets they have to fulfill. For example, if they produce 100 tons of plastic waste, so they have to get the 60 tons, at least 60 tons of the plastic, where they have to recycle that. So it is their responsibility to recycle this waste. Now in this concept, in this article we also have the concept of trading certificates. It gives us the concept of trading certificates also, in which क्या होता है कि if अब हमें दो कंपनी है, एक कंपनी है फॉर एग्जांपल पेप्सी की या कोका कोला, मतलब कि वो क्या करते हैं, दे उनका काम है सॉफ्ट ड्रिंक्स बनाना, और दूसरी कंपनी जो वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट का काम लेती है, वो कलेक्ट करते हैं वेस्ट और उसको रिसाइकल करते हैं. फॉर द कोका कोला इट इज़ नॉट इन देयर डोमेन टू कलेक्ट दिस वेस्ट. सो व्हाट दे विल डू, वो जो दूसरी कंपनी नेम इट ABC, वो क्या करेगी, कलेक्ट करेगी ये पूरा वेस्ट, और उसके से बिकॉज ऑफ दैट दे विल गेट द क्रेडिट. द कोका कोला विल बाय क्रेडिट. जो कोका कोला को क्रेडिट चाहिए था प्लास्टिक वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट का, वो दूसरी कंपनी से बाय करेगा. दैट इज कॉल्ड द concept of trading of certificates. The Coca-Cola will buy the certificates from the another company, and they will reach their target, जो उनको target करना achieve करना चाहिए था. और इसकी वजह से क्या होगा, there would be more employment. जो दूसरी company, they will give more employment to other people to join this work. employment increase होगी, definitely GDP increase होगा, और तीसरा कि pollution भी कम हो जाएगा. Now, why this article came into the discussion, because we had seen many cases of fake certificates in Maharashtra, जो वहाँ पे बहुत सारे फेक सर्टिफिकेट्स उभर रहे हैं. So with that concept, the central, with that, in this regard, the Central Pollution Control Board is conducting the audit, and they are checking what are the issues and where from these certificates are coming. So I hope I made it very clear, and it was very easy for you guys to understand it. About Central Control Board, you should remember it is the statutory body. You usually often such questions do come in the exam, whether it is executive body, statutory body, or constitutional body. So I hope I made it very clear for you guys. So let's move to the topic. Here we have to discuss about the prevalence of non-communicable disease. अगर हम देखेंगे hypertension, diabetes, it is the trend nowadays. Even the younger generation is getting infected by these diseases. So what do you think, what could be the reasons for that? मतलब कि ऐसे, why is this thing happening to the younger generation? अगर हम देखेंगे, these are not communicable. अगर ये होना चाहिए था, मतलब कि अगर हम पहले देखेंगे in अगर हम, if we will go back to 50 years, these diseases were not that much common, but right now these are very common even in the younger generation. What could be the reason? So the author of this article, he says there are mainly 3 reasons to this. First, the lifestyle issue. अगर हम देखेंगे, lifestyle changed from the last 50 years to the extreme ends. We are more dependent on the junk food. We eat high oil, मतलब कि अगर हम देखें, we use refined oil very much, and all that, all the lifestyle, the eating style of the citizens right now is very bad, and that leads to the hypertension, diabetes, and all that stuff. And also there is aging population in some states like Kerala. अगर हम केरला में देखेंगे तो so these non-communicable diseases are on rise in Kerala. The reason could be the aging population is there. Because of that, it is very common that the aging population have these diseases. And also another reason could be there is better monitoring of disease. अगर हम देखेंगे 50 साल पहले there was not that much monitoring of the disease. People were least bothered about it. They least consulted any doctor. Right now the better monitoring of disease is happening. Everybody is well aware of the impact of the disease. So that could be the reason there are more tracks of this disease in the population. So these are the 3 main reasons which the author mentions the reasons for the rise of the non-communicable diseases. और अगर हम देखेंगे in the communicable disease, infectious disease, they had they are curbed in few residences. मतलब वो उतना increase नहीं हो रहे because of the changes which the government had brought in, as compared अगर हम देखेंगे जो पहले communicable disease जैसे फैलती थी वैसे अब नहीं फैल रही है. अगर हम देखेंगे COVID-19 के बाद the country is doing very well with the sanitation and all that stuff which is required to limit the communicable diseases. So this was about the prevalence of non-communicable disease. Now moving to the another article of today's discussion, it talks about the tea industry seeks higher remission on duties rates. The remission of duties and taxes on exported product. The amount is जो वो remission चाहते हैं on the exported products, so that कि उनको अच्छा, मतलब कि they get the good benefit from it. The amount is returned, जो remission मिलता है, that amount is returned to them. And their another concern is the anti-dumping duties on the Nepal tea. जो Nepal है, they produce the low cheaper variety of the tea, and they dump that into the India. So this tea industry, they want anti-dumping duties on that, so that the Darjeeling, the tree producer in the Darjeeling area, they will get the benefit from that. उनको ज़्यादा फायदा मिले, domestic tea को ज़्यादा फायदा मिले as compared to others dumping in our country, as compared to other imports from different countries. So this is very small article about that. We need to know about the road tax rates, and we need to know about the remission of duties and taxes on exported products. We should know about the anti-dumping duties. What is this? Very simple and very simple and very small articles. These small concepts we need to know. Now moving to the another article, it talks about the animal acquiring genus from bacteria can produce antibodies. We have the example of small freshwater organism, namely Deloid rotifers. It is the freshwater species. It is said that whenever it gets fungal infection, it generates antifungal of its own. So this this by knowing that, it could be very impactful in the science and technology today. We can track this, and we can track this technology, we can track this by our technology, and we can implement in the science and technology, we can implement in humans and other organisms, so that this tendency could of producing these antibodies of its own can be increased in humans or animals. So this would help in fighting the disease very well. So with that respect, this article is important. Here we should know about the Deloitte rotifers, we should know about them, and we should know that it gets fungal. When it gets fungal infection, it generates antifungal of its own. So it is a freshwater organism. So with this was not that big article which is that important for us, but few points are there which we should know. We should know about the Deloitte rotifers, we should know about the antifungal, about the capacity of that organism to produce antifungal and others, and we should know how that can be implemented or used by the scientists in science and technology, how they can be used in the medical and research. So this was about it. With this we complete today's discussion. I hope you like the video, you would share this with your friends. Let's try to recap what we discussed today. First article, we discussed about the gender gap in education. We discussed about what gender gap is. We discussed about the World Economic Forum. We discussed about gender gap report. We discussed about the parameters which are required, for example, economic participation and opportunity and etc. We discussed about the India's ranking in World Gender Report. Then we discussed about the different enrollment of students in India, especially for girls, and we discussed about what could be the reasons of the change in the enrollment. And we also discussed about the factors involved, for example, number of schools, transportation, presence of female teachers, and infrastructure. After that, we discussed another article which was about the Karnataka bill. We discussed a few important points in it. For example, he should be the domicile of a particular state for 15 years and should have proficiency in the Kannada. We discussed about if states, if the companies to give 3 years training period to the locals, so that they would be well trained for the job, and if they are not able to get this, then they can request the government, and this quota could be reduced to 25% and 50%. And we also saw the arguments of the industry, for example, how this bill can impact the state. It will limit the talent pool, it will lead to the flight of skills, it will discourage the foreign investment, and also it would impact the GSDP very badly. And also we discussed the legal hurdles. Then after this article, we discussed about the Central Pollution Control Board. In this, the main point which we discussed was the extended producer responsibility. We discussed and also we discussed the concept of tradable certificates in it, and we discussed about the fake certificate issues from the Maharashtra. Then we discussed about the prevalence of non-communicable diseases, why these diseases are increasing. We discussed about that. We discussed the reasons like lifestyle issue, aging population, and better monitoring. Then after that, we discussed about the tea industry seeks higher remission on duties and taxes rates, remission of duties and taxes on exported products. And also we discussed about the tea exports, anti-dumping on and to have the cheaper varieties of tea grown in Nepal that is dumped in India. So we need anti-dumping duties are required on them. We discussed about that. Then finally we discussed this article, which is animals acquiring genes from bacteria can produce antibodies. In it, we discussed about the Deloitte rotifers. With this, we conclude today's article. I hope you like the video. Please share it with your friends and do subscribe the channel.